to the 6 Yard Line podcast. I'm your host, Noel Allen, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Sean Levy. Sean, what is going on?
It's been an exciting past weekend of football. I know you had a blast, so let's not focus on me. Let's hear about your time back home watching the Forest game with young Jackson.
You know what? It's there's those moments that you just kind of remember for forever, and it's up there. It's going to be one of those. It's they were, as you come into the city ground, there's the Forest Club store on your left side, and then there's a bar on the right side that had a live band playing, and they were playing "Take Me Home" as I walked down. So I got goosebumps from it. I was like, wow, like, okay, all right, this is on. So yeah, amazing, just absolutely amazing. I said to my kid, we just previously been to Green Bay a couple of weeks ago with 80,000 fans. I said to him, you're going to hear what 80,000 fans should sound like with 30,000 people doing it. And he said, really? And then halfway through the game, I think it's after Forest equalized, and he said to me, oh my God, it's thunderous. I'm like, it's loud. It is really loud. And yeah, just amazing day, amazing experience. And then on top of that, we probably got one of the best games of the season. So we'll get into it a little bit later. But yeah, you know what? It's always good to go home.
I think those are the stories and the memories, especially for young Jackson, that he'll never forget. Right? Like I said, you took him and your other son to the Green Bay game. Was it last week?
2 weeks
You were
ago, yeah.
Thanksgiving week, 2 weeks ago, and then now this. Like these are the memories you want to build with them, right? So hopefully it's stuff that they can pass on, because you've told me the stories of you growing up going to games, and this is now, it's obviously not going to be the same, but at least he's got the chance to experience that. And that's a once in a lifetime thing. So I'm
Yeah,
happy for you guys.
fifth generation of my family to go to games, right? So it's pretty epic, right? It's funny because on Monday my dad was in the stadium. I'm getting a full guided tour. Got to go to the players' locker room, a whole bunch of stuff, and I was like, "How do you get that tour?" His buddy arranged it, but I was still going to be there, so I had to ditch and come back to Canada. But yeah, it was my dad and my sister had a great tour of the city, the city ground, and got to see behind the scenes. Got to go on the pitch and kick the ball into the net, which I was a little bit gutted about. I didn't get to do that, so
Hopefully that does come by another time. All right, so let's get into the game that you were there, because um, I did catch some of the highlights, and I actually want to give, even though Villa lost, Martinez made that save he made where he left hand down. Was it left hand? I think it was his
yeah, it's
left
his
hand.
left hand. He does a 360 and flips it with his backhand and pulls it out the net. So let me explain. So I think the first half was fairly muted. I think they cancelled each other out. There wasn't a lot of clear cut chances. I think the first half was a bit cagey, and then Villa kind of came onto Forest a little bit more in this early in the second half. Uri Emery was like losing his mind right in front of me. He actually slipped over twice in his fancy Italian dress shoes and kicked the siding of the tunnel, the dugout. So he was clearly not happy. And they came on to Forest quite strong early in the second half. And then Forest kind of didn't mind that because then they could counter. And then Forest gets that corner, and you think, oh, like we were all up celebrating. We thought that was in. And we're like, that's got to be over the line. There's got to be waiting for the referee to say, the ball's crossed the line. And it never comes. And we're like, what? How? We just like everyone in the stand was like up celebrating that they thought that was in. And then Villa go down the other end and score. And John Duran with a good header. And let's be honest, I saw him in Chicago against Toronto FC a few years ago. He's come a long way. He looks a lot better player than he did from those days. He looked a threat. He's a very big guy. I would say Morgan Rogers. I was very surprised at how big he was in terms of his physique and his size. And he was very much taking all the instructions for the team from Unai Emery. And Villa were in front and they were dominating. I give the Villa fans a shout out. Their very loud, very vocal support was, really helping the team play. And then Forest obviously go down the other end and score a goal. We're all celebrating. And then we are held for 4.5 minutes while VAR decides whether Alanga's armpit is offside. And it's hard to tell from where we were. I was pretty much on the halfway line. I couldn't tell. They put it up on the screen. You couldn't tell from the screen. And then, we hear it's offside. The anti-VAR chants came out really loud. They were thunderous, as my kid said. And it seemed to ignite Forest. And, they could smell blood. I think they knew that they could then score on Villa. And then 2 minutes later, Milenkovic, who is an absolute beast. He is a man. He looks like him. I saw Vidic play for United years ago. He looks like Vidic. He's just a man. And then Forest made some changes, and they really kind of came on, and they came on really aggressively. And you could feel it. You could feel it. 30,000 could feel it. It was just, could Villa hang on was going to be the question. And Forest made changes, and then Villa made 2 changes in the midfield. And the 2 changes that Villa made in the midfield cost them the game, because he brought on Onana and he brought on Ross Barkley, and Forest ran straight through them. Like, at the end of the day, it was, I wasn't overly impressed with Yuri Tielemans. I think I tweeted it this week. I always thought he was a really good player, and I was surprised no one ever picked him up. I'm lucky he didn't give away penalties. He was just rugby tackling all over the pitch. He looked slow. He looked cumbersome. And then, Forest get down and Matty Cash flops there at the end. And, Elliot Anderson, wow, what a player. Morgan Gibbs-White, what a player. Up close and personal, insanely good, talented footballers. The Elliot Anderson one, I'm still going to be like, how did we get him for essentially 15 million? Absolute bargain. Puts the ball in the box. Anthony Elanga arrives, bangs it in. The place goes absolutely bananas. Forest fans are singing "You've Lost That Loving Feeling" to the Villa fans. And it was just, from there, it was party central. But great game, great entertainment. Emi Martinez, I don't like him. I think you know this full well from watching Canada-Argentina games with me. I can't stand that guy. He annoys the crap out of me. But holy crap, man. It's a save.
That's the thing, is you don't have to be a Martinez fan, but you have to respect, as a keeper, he is one of the world's best at making big saves, right? And the saves he makes, you look like, how the hell did he do that? It's not as if his technique, it's all about, he just throws himself at there. He does these unorthodox things that just makes him stand out. And you got to think, it may have been a different, that he's going to help Villa stay in a lot of games when they're not necessarily at their best.
Well, if you look at the Milenkovic goal, it's actually his error at the end. Milenkovic heads the ball, and then it hits him in the chest, and then he looks up and he sees the goalpost, and he takes his eye off the ball for a second, and the ball in there.
Is it really the goalie's fault, or is it just because he kind of had no choice? He was falling back in the net. So if he didn't try to push it out, he would have landed in the net with the ball.
Yeah, I think.
Remember, he was shifting over, and he didn't have the opportunity to get his hands on it. So it bounced literally right where. So I think he had, at that moment, as it hit his chest, I think he was thinking, do I try to save it, push it out? And I think he caught himself realizing where his position was, and he couldn't hold on to it. So he then tried at the last minute. So is it his fault? A little, but I think there's really not much he could have done based on
how it's a good play. It's going in. The power on it was fantastic.
Yeah.
Milinkovic 2 games in a row. My last kind of comment on this is Forest subbed off Murillo, the left-sided centre back, because he picked up a little bit of a knock, and they brought on Morata, which a bit of an under the radar signing early in the season. People didn't really know a lot about him. Holy crap, he's as big as Milinkovic, and very interesting to see that Forest seem to have discovered an awful lot of very good, talented footballers. Jota Silva was very talented, looked a real deal as well. And Nicolas Dominguez, didn't really rate him much last year, but I haven't seen anyone cover that much ground in a long, long time.
All right, we'll touch on something because I do actually have a question regarding Forest for you a little bit later. Because a friend of mine in one of my group chats were asking about who Arsenal should go after as a number 9. And a couple people pointed out a certain striker that you guys have. And I think, I don't think you guys will let anyone go. But the way you're playing, you have so much players playing so good. There's a lot of eyes are going to be on Forest and like, could that player, if we take him, could he be that piece that, helps at Arsenal? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And that's what I worry about with a Forest, right? Is that they still have, like, to some fans, there's that cachet is like, who are Forest? They don't know about the history, because I have to actually correct some of my friends and be like, look, Forest have more European titles than Arsenal. So slow down about Arsenal being the bigger club.
Yeah, it's in truth. And the only thing I would say though with Forest, everyone will have a price, but we also have an owner that if you go and just watch the Forest YouTube Shorts channel, they actually have a video where every player comes down the tunnel and they're met by Mr. Marinakis, and every single one of them is embraced by him. But he's got money. He doesn't need to sell anybody. He's got money. It's not about money for him. If you listen to him talk, he wants to win and he wants to put Forest back where they belong. And unless the player wants to go, I don't think necessarily.
I think that's where I would worry is that, yes, you guys have big ambitions and things are going great, but there could be the risk that if, for example, you guys say later in the season fall out of, say, the top, like you're still exceeding expectations, but say you're just shy of the European spot. That's where you have to worry come end of the season, that if you don't, it's almost like you almost have to kind of get into Europe next year to ensure that some of those players that are really starting to shine don't see, well, maybe if I move here, things, you know what I mean? But again, we'll touch on that a little bit later.
You'll get those, but you'll always get those, right? So,
of course,
it's always going to happen. It's the nature of the business we follow, right?